Hello, welcome to another video. Please like, share and subscribe for more amazing story. True God in Another Worlds, Tensura x Tbate, by Tempest_King_20. Chapter 56. The Young Mages. Alfred Pov. Your blows are weak, your grip on your sword is unsteady, James, Kyle said as he watched his opponent's feeble attempts at combat. He shook his head, clearly unimpressed by the display. You'll need to do better than that if you want to defeat me. Kyle tightened his own grip on his sword, preparing for the next round. Now, let's try again. This time, focus on your stance and use your entire body to deliver more power in your strikes. James took a deep breath, determination shining in his eyes as he adjusted his grip on the sword. His hands were trembling, but he wasn't about to give up. All right, Kyle. I'll give it another shot, he replied, his voice filled with determination. Meanwhile, I shifted my attention to the other side of the bustling training grounds, where Kyla was surrounded by a group of eager conjurer apprentices. They all huddled around her, soaking up every word as she explained the intricate secrets of their craft. On the sidelines, Ethan and Sophia stood, their faces beaming with pride as they watched the twin siblings' progress. There was a palpable admiration in their eyes, knowing that they had played a significant role in shaping Kyle and Kyla into the formidable mages they had become. Look at them, a familiar voice came from behind me. I didn't even need to turn around because I recognized his voice immediately. He stood next to me, his shoulder-length green hair swaying in the breeze, his silver eyes scanning the scene before us. Victor, one of my old comrades from the war against humans. They've come a long way, haven't they? He remarked, his voice tinged with nostalgia. It feels like only yesterday they were just starting their training, and now look at them, guiding the next generation of warriors and conjurers, Victor mused, a faint smile playing on his lips as his eyes fixed on Kyle and Kyla. I chuckled softly, glancing at Victor out of the corner of my eye. Indeed, they've come a long way, I replied, a hint of pride in my voice. It seems like just yesterday we were teaching them the basics of swordplay and spellcasting. Now, they're passing on their knowledge to others. Victor nodded, a wistful smile playing on his lips. Time flies, doesn't it? It certainly does, I replied, my gaze shifting back to the training grounds, but I suppose that's the way of things. The next generation always surpasses the last, building upon the foundation we've laid. Victor nodded in agreement. Indeed, and it's a testament to your guidance as well, my friend. You've done a remarkable job training them. I didn't really do much, I just taught them the basics and the youth took care of it, and let's not forget the role they played in their own development, I said, shaking my head. Always the humble one, huh? Victor chuckled, shaking his head. You always underestimate your own impact, my friend. But I suppose that's just part of who you are. I only smiled in response, as we stood there, watching the young mages in their flowing robes. A sense of pride swelled within me. They've come a long way since they first set foot in our town, that's for sure. Seeing them now, confident and skilled, brought back memories of my own training days. I remembered the struggle of mastering spells, the thrill of nailing my first water ball, and the frustration when things didn't go according to plan. It was a journey full of ups and downs, but it shaped me into the mage I am today. But amidst the pride, a shadow of concern loomed. These young ones, filled with hope and determination, were about to face a war unlike anything they had ever experienced before. And it tore at my heart. I had witnessed the horrors of war myself, having fought in the previous conflict between humans and elves. The devastation, the loss. It was something I never wanted them to experience. Yet, here we were, on the brink of another war, one that threatened to consume the entire continent. This time, it wasn't about old grudges or misunderstandings. It was a full-blown invasion, a fight for survival. The thought sent a chill down my spine. As their mentor, it was my job to prepare them for what lay ahead. I wished I could shield them from the harsh reality of war, but I knew they needed to be tough. They had to be ready for whatever challenges came their way, both on the battlefield and in their hearts. Despite the fear gnawing at me, I held onto a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, these young mages could be the ones to turn the tide. Perhaps they could be the ones to bring peace to our world, to build a future without the shadow of war. And as their mentor, I was determined to steer them in that direction. Just as I was lost in my thoughts, Victor's voice broke through the silence, interrupting my reverie. You know, there was something that puzzled me, he said, his brow furrowing as he scratched his head. Curiosity piqued. I turned to him and silently urged him to continue. Victor always had a knack for noticing things others might overlook, so when he raised a concern, it was worth listening to. Why did Lord Rimuru decide to intensify the training? He questioned, his tone filled with genuine curiosity. Usually, Lord Rimuru is all about balance, you know? Making sure they have a well-rounded education in both theory and practical skills. But lately, he's been pushing them harder, increasing the difficulty of their training exercises and adding more rigorous challenges. It's like he's preparing us for something big. I considered his question carefully before responding. Well, you see, the beasts in the dungeons have been growing more powerful, posing a greater threat. Rimuru wants to ensure that they are prepared for any challenges that may arise. That's why the training has become more rigorous. Victor's eyes narrowed, a hint of skepticism in his gaze. He wasn't fully convinced by my explanation. Is that all? He asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. I met his gaze directly, holding his gaze steady. Yes, that's the extent of it, I assured him, choosing to withhold the full truth about the impending war to avoid causing unnecessary panic among our comrades. It was a delicate balance we had to maintain, shielding them from the truth while still preparing them for the battles that lay ahead. Victor seemed to ponder my words, his frown gradually easing. All right, if you say so, he finally relented, his doubt subsiding for the moment. Victor's doubt subsided for the moment, but I could sense that he still had lingering questions. It was understandable. I knew it was important to address any concerns he had and provide him with the reassurance they needed. Victor, I understand your curiosity, I began, my voice calm yet firm. But trust in Lord Rimuru's judgment. He has his reasons for intensifying the training, and it is for our benefit. Victor crossed his arms, his expression still skeptical. I just find it strange that he would suddenly change his approach. Everything was going smoothly before, and now it feels like we're being pushed to our limits. Well, caution is better than regret, isn't it? I replied with a reassuring smile, patting his back gently. Lord Rimuru always thinks ahead, ensuring we're prepared for whatever challenges may come our way. We may not fully understand his motives now, but I believe he has our best interests at heart. Victor let out a chuckle before nodding. You're right, as always. I should trust in Lord Rimuru's leadership. As we turned our attention back to the young mages diligently practicing their spellcasting, the sound of approaching footsteps caught our attention. It was Emma, accompanied by Leo, Sophia, and Ethan. The soft rustle of leaves under their feet accompanied their arrival, adding a natural rhythm to their steps. Oh, I see you two deep in conversation. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important, Emma said with a small smile. Not at all, Lady Emma, Victor said respectfully, his voice carrying a hint of admiration for the noble lady before him. With a graceful movement, he offered a small bow to both Emma and Leo, a sign of deference to their status and leadership. I was just about to wrap up here. So, if you'll excuse me now, Victor said, giving me a friendly smile and a nod. I'll catch up with you later. Of course, Victor, I said with a nod and a smile as Victor excused himself and walked away. Once Victor was out of earshot, I turned to Emma and asked, my curiosity piqued by her presence, is everything okay? Emma nodded, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Yes, everything is going well. I just finished my lesson for the emitters, and Leo did a quick check of the school. Everything seems to be running smoothly there as well. We've even hired more experienced adventurers as teachers to enhance the students' learning experience. That's great to hear, I replied, genuinely relieved. Emma leaned in closer, her eyes filled with curiosity as she addressed me. So, what were you and Victor discussing? I could sense something was bothering him. He had some doubts about the intensified training, I replied, giving her a knowing look. Emma let out a sigh, acknowledging the inevitable. Ah, I figured someone would start questioning it sooner or later. But you didn't reveal anything, did you? No way, I replied firmly. Victor may be a close friend, but revealing the truth about the impending war is too risky. Leo, who had been listening intently, chimed in. Absolutely. The fewer people who know, the better. I nodded, fully aligned with Leo's sentiment. Exactly, I affirmed, my voice tinged with urgency. We have to keep this information tightly restricted to those who absolutely need to know. The enemy is cunning, and we can't afford to let them get wind of our plans. Our success depends on our ability to maintain secrecy. What about Thoren? I don't see him here, Emma asked, her gaze scanning the area in search of Thoren. He's over at the training facilities, putting his students through the ringer, Ethan interjected, a hint of amusement coloring his voice. But it looks less like training and more like torture, if you ask me. Dude's really taking out his frustrations on them. Emma chuckled, familiar with Thoren's intense training methods. Classic Thoren. He's always been a bit of a hard ass when it comes to pushing his students. But I guess the news of the war has gotten to him. Sophia shook her head, a mix of amusement and concern painted on her face. I just hope he doesn't push them too hard. We want them to become skilled fighters, but not at the expense of their well-being. Thoren may seem tough, but he knows his students' limits, Leo reassured, his voice carrying a sense of confidence. He wants them to grow stronger, not break them. We have to trust that he'll strike the right balance. Ethan nodded in agreement, his eyes reflecting admiration for Thoren's methods. Yeah, Thoren may come off as harsh, but he's got a good heart. He pushes his students because he genuinely believes in their potential. He won't let them give up easily. I chimed in, my voice filled with unwavering trust. I have faith in Thoren's judgment. He's been training warriors for years, and he knows how to bring out the best in them. We just have to trust that he'll push them without compromising their safety. Emma turned her gaze towards the twins, watching as Kyle and Kyla moved gracefully through their training exercises, their faces furrowed in concentration. What about Kyle and Kyla? How are they holding up? Sophia chimed in, the twins are doing amazingly well, all things considered. Their skills have skyrocketed, and their commitment to training is straight up inspirational. But, she paused, a slight crease forming between her brows, I've noticed they've been going even harder at it since learning about the impending war. There's this intense urgency in their movements that wasn't there before. Emma's frown deepened, her worry becoming more evident. I get that they're determined to be prepared, but we can't let them run themselves into the ground. They're still kids, for crying out loud. All this relentless training could backfire if they're not careful. You know, this might be one of the reasons why Rimuru kept the topic of the war from us for so long, Ethan interjected, his voice thoughtful and contemplative. All eyes turned to him, awaiting his explanation. Well, think about it, Ethan began, his gaze shifting between his companions. Ever since Kyle and Kyla learned about the war, they've been pushing themselves even harder, thinking that they need to be prepared at all costs. But that level of intensity could put them at risk of overexertion or even burnout. Perhaps Rimuru wanted to shield them from that burden, at least for a little while, to allow them to develop at a more sustainable pace. Emma nodded slowly, her expression pensive. You might be onto something there, Ethan. We want them ready, but we also got to make sure they don't burn out before the real battle even starts. She sighed, running a hand through her hair, a telltale sign of her worry. Leo, ever the voice of reason, suggested, maybe we should talk to Kyle and Kyla, help them understand the importance of pacing themselves. They're strong, but they need to take care of themselves too. Yeah, good idea. Emma agreed as she nodded. By the way, who are those two over there? She asked, nodding towards the boy sparring with Kyle and the girl training with Kyla. Sophia, her gaze fixed on the unfolding battle, smiled and replied, oh, those are James and Elisa. They just turned 15 this year and have been training under Thoren's guidance. They've really honed their skills over the past couple of years. Leo, intrigued by the display of prowess, leaned in closer to get a better look. James and Elisa, huh? They're holding their own quite impressively against Kyle and Kyla. Sophia's eyes gleamed with pride as she observed the two younger students. Yes, they're both incredibly talented. They've been putting in countless hours of practice and dedication to improve their skills. Emma let out a low whistle, clearly impressed by the display. Well, it's no easy feat to keep up with Kyle and Kyla, but James and Elisa are managing quite well. Looks like they've got some serious potential. Leo nodded, his expression thoughtful. True, but let's not forget the experience factor. James and Elisa are skilled, no doubt, but Kyle and Kyla have been training for years and have faced countless battles. It's that kind of experience that can't be replicated overnight. Sophia hummed in agreement, her gaze never leaving the spar. Absolutely. James and Elisa have a lot to learn and gain from facing opponents like Kyle and Kyla. It's a valuable experience that will only make them stronger in the long run. Emma and Leo exchanged a knowing look, their eyes sparkling with anticipation, before giving each other a subtle nod. Leo then turned to me, his voice laced with curiosity. So, what do you think? Are James and Elisa ready to be taken into the dungeon? I paused for a moment, carefully observing the fierce battle unfolding before us. James and Elisa were engaged in a relentless clash with the twin combatants, their movements filled with unwavering determination. However, there was still a certain rawness to their technique, a hint of inexperience that was hard to miss. Well, I've got to say, they're definitely showing some serious promise, I replied, weighing my words carefully. Their skills and resolve are pretty impressive, no doubt about it. But they've still got a lot to learn, you know? I mean, the dungeon's no joke, and they might not be fully prepared just yet. But, if they get the right kind of support and guidance, I reckon they've got what it takes to handle the challenges down there. Ethan's eyes practically sparkled with excitement as he chimed in, "Aw, man, I couldn't agree more. Venturing into the dungeon is gonna push them to their limits, but that's exactly what they need to become even stronger, you know." Sophia nodded in agreement, her voice filled with conviction. Absolutely. It's a chance for them to gain invaluable experience and confront new challenges head-on. But I'm curious, what's with the sudden interest in sending them in? Emma's explanation flowed effortlessly, her tone calm and measured. Rimuru has tasked us with exploring the depths of the dungeon and capturing some of the corrupted beasts, as he calls them. Apparently, he wants to conduct experiments on them, to unravel the secrets behind their newfound strength. Ethan grinned, his excitement palpable. I say we give them a shot, you know? The dungeon's gonna be one heck of a test for them, but if they can handle it, they'll come out of it even stronger than before. I took a moment to carefully weigh the pros and cons of the situation, and then reached my conclusion. All right. Well, it sounds like a solid plan to me. And with Jackson and Lara out of the picture for now, these two are probably your best bet for this little mission of Rimuru's. Then it's settled, Emma said, her voice resolute, as she turned her gaze back towards the ongoing battle, a determined glint in her eyes. When are you leaving? I asked, my curiosity piqued as I sought to ascertain the timeline of their imminent departure. My eyes locked onto Emma's, searching for any telltale signs that would reveal the urgency behind their plans. Emma's eyes flickered with a sense of urgency, as if the weight of their mission pressed heavily upon her. She replied, if it were up to me, I'd prefer we leave right this moment. There's no time to waste. I nodded in understanding, my brow furrowing slightly. No time to waste then. Let's go inform James and Elisa immediately, I suggested, already turning to lead the way towards the young mages. As our group approached James and Elisa, the mages, who were either training or talking among themselves, paused their sparring, their attention immediately drawn to us, specifically Emma and Leo. To these young mages, Leo, Emma, and of course Jackson and Lara, were seen as heroes. They were the ones who had saved countless lives under Rimuru's leadership. James, Elisa, may we have a moment of your time? I called out, trying not to disrupt their training entirely. Hi. James replied, wiping the sweat from his brow as he and Elisa approached us. Kyle and Kyla, sensing the importance of the conversation, joined us as well, their expressions mirroring the curious anticipation of their peers. Hello, James and Elisa, Emma greeted warmly, her smile radiating genuine warmth. We need to discuss something of great importance with you both. Leo stepped forward, his countenance serious and resolute. We've been closely observing your sparring sessions, and we are truly impressed by your skills. That's why we wanted to extend to you both an opportunity to join us on a mission to the dungeon. We're going on a hunt to capture beasts from the dungeon. James and Elisa exchanged excited glances, their eyes widening with a mixture of surprise and eagerness. You want us to come with you? Elisa's voice